Welcome to Whistleblowers in partnership with Wix Trade Pro. Coming up.
Legend has it, Neil, Sam and Phil went to get the train back north and they sat down at McDonald's. Brownie asked if they had a wine list.
The first record you brought
would have been Belinda Carlisle.
Was it?
I'll leave a lad on for me. Getting the
He cried when Take That split up and his first record was Belinda Carlisle.
I cried when they got back together.
Welcome to Whistleblowers, the podcast, with a lovely trio of gentlemen with you today. Mark Clattenburg, Ian Ladyman and me, Gordon Smart. I went to see the Take That film last night, and here we are, just like Take That, down to 3.
But the only 3 that matter.
We're not even the original lineup, are we?
So you've got to be Barlow.
What the fuck?
You do all the clever stuff.
Early to swear at you, isn't it?
Be careful what you say here, mate.
You've got to be Robbie,
Yeah.
because you're mildly talented and not bad looking.
Ego.
Yeah, like that. I've always liked.
And come on, it's not hard to work out.
Howard
I've
Donald.
got with the boy Owen, who's just 4'3" and along for the ride. Is that about right? It's got to be right, isn't it?
Get in touch with us.
Yeah.
Email us.
I've not libelled anyone there.
You haven't. No, you
I don't
haven't.
think.
I'm just gutted. I don't want to be Gary Barlow. I'm gutted about it.
Come on, you always fancy yourself as a creative one.
I'd like to be Jason Orange because he's kind of slightly camp, isn't he? You know that northern accent that's quite misleading.
That is quite nice in camp. That yeah.
It's a false sense of security because he actually loves girls.
It's what he says. Well, I'm with him now.
I went to see Take That last night. It was 2 nights ago. Brilliant film. But in a cinema next door, Ian Ladyman was getting angry watching a more masculine movie than me.
Can I just say, first of all, so I saw Take That at the Etihad about 15 years ago, right?
Yep.
And they were brilliant.
Amazing. Circus tour.
Whenever I see, I think that was all of them, can't remember. Whenever I see footage of them now, like Gary and Mark Owen, it just looks a little bit like old man dad dancing.
We're getting older. That's what's
No,
happening.
but you can pull it off if you're. I think if you're a rock band, so obviously if you're U2, you pull it off all day long, can't you? You'll go on forever. Don't if you pull it off as Take That.
When you've got a fan group with an appetite for them like that.
I cried when they split up.
Did you?
Yeah.
Why
shock.
had you had a bet that they stay together?
He had 40 quid on them.
Yeah, 40 quid.
Nothing makes you cry that's not connected to
No, because it was a big thing, wasn't it, when they announced that they were splitting up?
Was it because your tribute band had to break up and as Robbie you were going to have to leave?
It was
as
a
well?
big thing, and it also turned out to be a lie. I cried when they got back together.
So bringing the podcast back to football.
Yeah. So yeah,
what did you go and see?
So I had a day off yesterday and went into Manchester and watched the Saipan film, the Roy Keane, Mick McCarthy film. There were 3 of us in the cinema at 3:00 at the
3 men on their own.
Yeah, happily not all sitting next to each, not all sitting on the same row. Anyway, I went to see the film. Fascinated by it. I enjoyed it. The guy who I hadn't heard of, and Gordon, your frames of reference on these things are broader than mine. Ina Hardwick, never heard of him, I have to say, plays Roy Keane. Extraordinary performance. I mean,
Chilling, because you must have interviewed him a lot around that time.
You would think that Keane would be pretty, because he's so unique, you'd think he'd be almost impossible to do. And this guy's done it. It's quite extraordinary. On the other flip side, what made me quite grumpy was the fact that the portrayal of Mick McCarthy is scandalous.
So Steve Coogan plays Mick McCarthy.
So
Steve Coogan's what, about 60 years old now, roughly?
So Steve Coogan from Manchester playing Mick McCarthy from Barnsley. Coogan's 60. Mick McCarthy was 43 during 2002 World Cup. He was, without being facetious, he was he was in his prime. Okay, he'd been playing 8 years seriously, 8 years previously. He's portrayed in this film as a bumbling idiot. He's portrayed as a fool who is allowing what is presented as like a 4-day stag do to go on around him at the Irish team hotel while they are trying to prepare for the World Cup in Japan and Korea. As we all know, Keane didn't like it, got pissed off, went home. We know that, and that's the story of the film. But to portray Mick as a chump, as an unprofessional chump, who's, and I've spoken to players who were in that party and they don't recognise what they see in the film. Now, artistic license is fine for the sake of entertainment, it's absolutely fine. But I don't think you should deliberately, and I think that's what they've done. I don't think you should deliberately portray a guy as something that he's not. They've done that. They've not done that with Keane. They've portrayed Keane as accurately as they can. They've not done that with Mick. Why not? In the film, Keane, in many ways, especially the scene at the end when they have the big showdown in front of all the players, and McCarthy sends him home. Okay, and when he, I think Keane comes out the lines, you can stick the World Cup up your bollocks, and I'm going. In that scene, Keane is towering over Coogan. Okay, and Mick's 6'1".
Yeah, Mick's a big unit, isn't he?
You know,
and a formidable man as well.
You know, Keane's 5'11". Keane, even as an athlete, if Keane was going to take Mick on physically back then, that would have been worth watching. This presents it like a a street hooligan bullying somebody's granddad. It's just not the way it was.
Not the way it was.
So
I'll have to watch that then.
And Mick, I know that Mick is pissed about it.
Is he?
Yeah, and I know that he spoke to. I don't blame Coogan. I'm surprised Coogan took the part.
Yeah.
Don't know why Steve Coogan thought he could do Mick McCarthy. I don't know why. Surprised that it was strange casting to me. Coogan did speak to Mick on the phone in the run up to the film for a bit of advice, and I don't think there's any issue with Mick in the way that Steve's done the role. Just don't think that there's a huge amount of joy about the way he's been portrayed. But
Or balance.
go and see it, everybody. Go see it.
I'll have to see it. But surely Mick McCarthy had some input into the film. You would assume so.
Doesn't sound like it.
Not apart from that phone call.
Are they going to make a film about your encounter with Roy Keane in Dubai?
It was in Qatar.
All right.
But when he just blanked us.
Yeah.
Gary Neville, Ian Wright, shook hands and were like, "Hi, how are you?" Blah, blah, blah. Roy Keane just blanked us.
Totally blanked you.
Yeah, I've upset him.
Have you? It's in your book, right?
But I
Cool.
can't sleep at nights worrying about it. And I think he's got the same issue. Doesn't care.
When Keane had his second book out, which was eagerly anticipated, because it was going to be dealt with his exit from Man United and all the rest of it.
And that wasn't the one with Haaland. That was the first book.
So Haaland's the first one.
With a second, it had an update as well, didn't it? Was there not a second edition?
So he was
legally.
He was sued over what he said about Haaland because
Is that by the Football Association?
Yeah, because he said in the first book that he deliberately went to hurt him. So the second book is about a little bit about the legal fallout of the first book, and then the second half of his career. And it was that book when it came out. Journalists were going to supermarkets and persuading staff to get it out the back before it was even out. People were so determined to see what the contents of that book. I remember I went to a launch of it in Ireland, in Dublin. It was when Keane was going through what I describe as geography teacher phase. Remember when he had the big beard? Yeah. And he was wearing kind of tweed jackets and things. And he came to this launch and just, Keane knew what he was doing. He was there to sell a book. So he just volleyed everyone. Volleyed Fergie, volleyed former United players and blah, blah. Just did what he had to do to sell the book. And then he sat down to talk to the written press. And we're on a round table, about 8 of us, and I just happened by complete coincidence to be sitting next to him. Keane doesn't know who I am, I don't think. I did cover him briefly at United. I'd be surprised if he knew me. Anyway, we're sitting there, and I just say to him, I said, I was surprised in the book, Roy, that you admitted that your first record that you ever bought was Karma Chameleon by Culture Club. I said, I was really surprised that you admitted that. He just looked and gave me the side eye. Like, I was 12. And I was like, yeah, no, but I was 12. Yeah, but I'm surprised. I was 12. And he looks at me and says, so what was yours? So I'm right on the spot. I've got 8 other journalists around this table.
Yeah.
So what was yours? I just told him the truth. I said, well, it was Does Your Mother Know That You're Out by ABBA. And I wish I could do the accent. He just looked at me and said, why am I not fucking surprised?
That's brilliant.
He won that one.
Yeah. Good on you for being honest, though.
He won that one. But he's like, he is intimidating.
Yeah.
He's intimidating.
It was the first record you brought, Mark Clattenburg.
Would have been Belinda Carlisle.
Was it?
Darling, leave a light on for me. had all Belinda stuff. Remember when you used to get them? You used to get the CDs and out of the magazine and
Britannia.
yeah. remember getting them
He
once.
tried when Take That split up, and his first record was Belinda Carlisle.
Go on then.
What was yours?
Come on.
It's
Don't be cool.
It's
Just
I'm
tell
not
the
going to
truth.
be cool. I'm not going to be cool. It's really hard to remember. I had a big brother who was brilliant with music, so I just nicked all his stuff. But the first thing I bought, it was probably an album by Queen, I think.
Okay,
Like
I'll
the
see it.
greatest hits or something like that.
Yeah,
If I was
that would
really,
be about right.
would have been about 11 or 12 maybe.
Love it.
And I remember I loved the film Highlander, and I wanted to get Who Wants to Live Forever, and that was on. I think
I
that was
like
Queen
that
too.
song.
Great tune, great
Queen
tune.
song.
Tell you what's great now, because I've got a daughter, 14, and she's buying vinyls again.
Yeah, of course.
They've
it is.
gone
Yeah.
back.
My son's the
She
same.
loves the Smiths.
Yeah,
She loves
Does
all
she?
the, yeah.
that's because of
But she loves, like,
possibly
now they want
Stranger
record
Things.
players. They've gone back
Yeah.
from we now want to listen to everything on a mobile phone, don't we? The adults. Now the youth have gone back to CDs.
I've
and
still got
vinyl.
I've still got my old CD kind of separate system out. Well, I've got it out again in our front room, and the loader on the CD drawer is the motor is gone.
Is it gone?
So I've got to prise it open with a knife every time.
That's
I'm
health
still
and
doing
safety.
it.
Please don't do that at home. By the way,
Could just get it
It's a-
mended.
it's a
Could just get it
plastic-
fixed.
It's a plastic knife. That was proper Steve Coogan, Alan Partridge conversation. There was a nice action. Right, let's bring it back to football then, shall we? Because it's perfect week for you, Mark Clattenburg, with Pep and a refereeing situation with Farai Halam, right? And this was his Premier League debut as a ref, wasn't it? Manchester City against Wolves. Now, there's a VAR situation. It was a possible handball, but he stuck with his decision, which I think Ian and I probably agreed on. I think you might be
Me
too.
too. Me
That
too.
it seemed to me to be a sensible football decision. However, Pep's had seen it slightly differently. So how do you take it, the whole situation?
If we talk about the decision first, the decision's a very subjective handball where Darren England, who was a very experienced VAR, has decided to probably over-help a new referee in his Premier League debut. A referee who's got background as one of these referees that have come through a system of where ex-players are fast-tracked. He used to play for Stevenage. So he's understands the game. He knows as a footballer that's not a handball, especially the way Premier League have been over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
With handball, they've got a higher bar of interpretation regarding handball, different to Champions League, of course. But when you see Premier League, you very rarely see handballs now given. And when it was given, I thought to myself straight away, that'll not be overturned by the VAR and there would be no recommendation. I was very surprised there was a recommendation. And what was great, that he went to the monitor and had the balls as a young referee. Bear in mind, they're going to meet up again in 2 weeks and he'll see Darren England face to face. He'll think, why did you do that? Why did you give us a recommendation when I've told you over the headpiece that I've saw the handball and I think it wasn't deliberate and the arm was in a natural position? You're giving me no other information that tells me that decision was wrong.
When you say they'll see each other in 2 weeks, what do you mean?
Every 2 weeks they meet up at St George's
right.
or wherever they meet. So as a group they'll
Okay.
meet. And what you want is you want harmony within the group. I wouldn't be happy if I'd got sent to the monitor there as a referee, and especially a young referee who's making his debut, because all you want in your debut, I remember my debut, Crystal Palace Everton. And okay, I sent off an Everton player quite correctly, 2 yellow cards, couldn't avoid it. But Everton won the game, so it wasn't such a major talking point. And really, in this game, it wasn't really a talking point because Manchester City won the game comfortably, and this decision would have upset, certainly angered Wolves, because certainly it wasn't a penalty
So
that was
with
worth
that
it.
in mind, then why did Pep said he'd made a huge debut and everyone will know him now, which kind of puts the attention on him. Well, why do you think
Well,
he's
I'm
done that?
shocked. I've dealt with managers and I've dealt with Pep, and I've dealt with some really strong characters and managers, Fergie, Mourinho. And this isn't clever what he did. They've won the match. When a manager used to come out, it was when they needed to defend themselves to the board, to defend themselves with their fans. And sometimes they would come out and blame the referee because the referees were the easy target. What I'm shocked at, this was a great way of going on the charm offensive with a group of referees from the select group. Because if he'd come out, they've won the game 2-0, it wasn't really a talking point. all he had to do at the end of it, which Mourinho and them would have done, the referee had a good game. He's got real good potential. And what that then does is a group of referees will go, Pep's all right. Pep's a nice bloke.
Yeah.
And it goes, it's not that decision, it's the next one, it's the next one. And I felt Pep's either losing it or he's deciding that he wants to take on a group of referees, where if you're going to take on Premier League referees individually, you're not going to win.
But there's another layer to this as well. I think he's mentioned Howard Webb 3 times. Is it 3
We
times?
didn't even know Howard Webb's name.
Third time in 2 weeks he's mentioned Howard Webb.
2 weeks ago, he didn't even know who the head of refereeing was.
Really?
What do you mean?
When he had to get the name off a journalist when he was getting interviewed, he was struggling to understand who the head. And then he did mention, I'm going to be speaking to Howard Webb over the challenge by Darlow on
Doku.
Yeah.
So he wanted, and then eventually he got the Howard Webb's name because he said, I'm going to speak to the head of refereeing. And then somebody shouted, it's Howard Webb. And then he went, yeah, it's Howard Webb. When my dealings with Pep was, and he's been critical of referees in the past. So it's when he comes and you made a good point before you had he come out and said he doesn't really criticise referees.
He says that, yeah. He's not.
I
commented on
remember
refereeing.
when in his first season, it might have been his first season in the Premier League, and I was 4th division. He was berating the referee, berating him, and I said, "What are you doing? Why are you acting like this? You're all the same. All your referees are the same." And I grabbed his hand, like his arm, and I said, "Sorry, you think am I the same then?" "Oh no, I never said that." I says, "Well, you've just said all the referees are the same." "Oh no, I didn't mean you." I says, "Well, you can't have it all ways. Yeah, you're going to have some referees that are inexperienced, some referees making the debut, but you've got players making the debut. Do you think the referees are going to say, well, that player was rubbish on his debut?" I think Guardiola had a good chance, a very experienced coach in the Premier League, and could have set an example, because refereeing isn't an easy job, and this referee did a very good job. Why he's done that?
He has since apologised. What did you make of the apology?
Ian, what was the apology?
Well, if you're at home or you're in any situation and someone says to you, "I'm sorry that I upset you," is that an apology or not?
Well, it feels to me like the kind of apology I have in a bad argument at home.
Precisely.
Right? Where it's a kind of an insincere, inauthentic apology.
In other words, almost kind of portraying you as the weak person for being upset.
We would, in modern dating, you might call it gaslighting.
I think it's exactly what you would call it. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you just knew that term straight away.
As well as an ego narcissist.
But, that's exactly what it is. To say that. So Pep has then done his press conference ahead of Wednesday night's Champions League game against Galatasaray. He's been asked about it again, and he's come back, and that's when he said, "Oh, I'm sorry if he was upset." And I just think it's disingenuous and it's poor. Okay, it's poor, and I think Pep should be better. I do think people at City may disagree with me, but I do think if you are a manager of long standing in the Premier League, I think you do have an obligation to set an example. I think you do. It comes with, it's a privilege of, one of the privileges of being successful. I think you have a duty to set an example, and he set the wrong example at the weekend, and he set it again on Tuesday. As far as I'm concerned, to me, it's a manifestation of Guardiola's current state of mind, his worries. His team aren't playing well. They won that game, we know, but they're not playing very well. They got thumped in the derby, got beaten by Bodo Glimt. As we sit here on a Wednesday morning, we don't know what's going to happen against Gala. But I think there's a lot going on in Pep's mind. There's a business about his future.
Is he unravelling a bit?
I won't say he's unravelling, because when I've been down this road before with Guardiola, you say, oh, he's unravelling, and then he wins 2 trophies. So I won't go that far, but I think he is what he is inside, what we can see from the outside. He's a man trying to manage change. I had a look at the weekend game against Wolves, compared it to a year previous weekend when they played Chelsea, end of January 2025. There was only, of the 13 players who played for him on that day a year ago, only 4 played on Saturday. That shows a level of change. He's struggling. They don't look like Man City. They don't win monotonously like Man City. He knows there's an opportunity at the top of the Premier League, because Arsenal are not quite as all-conquering as we thought they were going to be a couple of months ago. And his team aren't taking it. They're not closing that gap because they're not proving up to it themselves. I think all of that is going on.
And traditionally, this is the strongest part of the season for City, isn't it?
Yeah. I think all of that is going on in his head. And he's wrong when he says, I've never had an issue with referees. This is a quote from his first season. When I remember watching his first season 10 years ago, it was fascinating because he was struggling. I think we all knew that he'd go on to be successful. So watching him struggle in the first season was kind of fascinating. And I remember them winning a home game against Burnley, but they had a man sent off, Fernandinho sent off. I dug out the quote this morning. I have to understand the rules here in England. I know you're special. Classic kind of Pep. It's not me, guys. It's you.
It's you.
You know.
Yeah.
And
We're going back to that relationship panel.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. So there's a lot.
If City fans would say he was defending our club.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get that. No, I get that.
And he can do that without patronising the hell out of a referee.
100%. But if I look at 2 games or 2 weekends, separate weekends in games, you look at the challenge by Darlow on Doku, which for me was a red card.
Yellow
and
card.
By 95% of people think it's a red card. Yeah.
Yellow
I think
card
95% people do say it's red.
Yellow card.
But you then look at the handball, which is very subjective. Certainly doesn't hurt players. Isn't going to put a player out injured. It's a very subjective call by a very inexperienced referee who did a very good job. I don't understand when he doesn't really attack Anthony Taylor on the derby, but attacks a young referee. It feels it's a cheap shot.
Yeah.
And I agree with what Ian's saying. It's possibly his mindset after losing at Glint. Now he's in panic mode again after he's now got to possibly go into the playoff again. Another 2 games in February.
You could
it's not
argue,
easy.
I don't think that a Premier League manager should be expected to treat a new referee any differently to an old one. A Premier League referee is a Premier League referee.
No, but always when
you deserve to be there.
Yeah, but Ian, I think, and I remember making my debut, and I think when referees are making debuts, the media. You want to be soft because it's like a player making his debut, and I think you've got to give people a chance. You know, how does a referee ever get experience? He's got to go out there and do it.
How does this play out in the future then, do you think, Mark? Because how long Pep's going to be in the Premier League, we don't know. But what do you think about Farai Halam's future? Where does he go in refereeing? Because he could conceivably come up against Pep somewhere down the line. Will he carry this with him, do you think?
We don't know if he's ever going to see him again because it'll take this referee probably many years to get internationally.
Yeah.
So if Pep moves from the Premier League and goes to a big European side, highly unlikely.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, highly unlikely.
Do you carry that with you? You would, wouldn't you? In your
I wouldn't
career?
carry it. No, I've had managers, but it's different environments. Like Mourinho when he first left Chelsea, then he went to Inter, then he went to Real Madrid, completely different. Then he comes back to Chelsea, becomes bitter again. Then he goes to Manchester United, and even worse. So you're seeing different. So you can't hold things. But what I like about this referee is he's an ex-player and he's a trailblazer for ex-players who want to be referees. And I think it's important because referees, and I've said this for a long time, there's a lot of referees that know the laws of the game inside out. They know the book, but they don't understand the game. And when you don't understand the game, you start getting criticised. You can hide behind the law. I could hide behind the handball law and say it's a handball. But football didn't expect that being given. And I love the idea. And let's hope it works for him, because if it does work, we're going to have ex-players coming more and more into the game as referees, which will only help the game. Because he was an example where he understood football. Football didn't expect a penalty. But the Darren England, who knows the laws of the game, decided it was a penalty. So I love this idea, and I think
I kind of liked it as well. Yeah.
What I will say is that I do know that that managers generally, some worse than others, they do struggle to get perceived injustices out of their mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't labour the story, but I remember, and you remember the game, Mark. I remember 20 odd years ago when Sam Allardyce's Bolton played in the League Cup final. It was against Middlesbrough in Cardiff, and they lost. And Sam could not get it out of his head that it was Mike Riley's fault. And he was, and he was. I had the good fortune to be at the Bolton after party. It was a decent party that night at the Vale of Glamorgan Hotel, even though they'd lost.
Good hotel, that.
Heaven knows what it would have been like had they won. And Sam was ranting about it at the party that night. And the next day, I was there with Neil Custis, a friend of mine who used to work for the Sun. And on the way home, I had the misfortune to be driving us back the next day. Sam was on the phone again to Neil on the way home. Still ran, and we were like, Sam, you're gonna have to let this go now. The game's over. They struggle to get these things out of their heads.
Yeah,
they really do.
But if you remember, it was is it Bowden? Middlesbrough played. So as he takes his penalty, it's changed now because it would be a retake under the new law. But years ago, if you touch the ball twice, it's deemed as an indirect free kick. And when he goes to hit it, he hits it off his other foot. And it changes the ball direction.
But the point
and
is
the ball
just-
goes in the opposite way. It took, it really like, to examine it properly. But Sam was always like that. Sam had analysts in the stadium
Didn't he?
watching everything about the referee. He was always obsessed about the referee. And he felt Mike Riley was wrong in law. It's not an
Double hit.
opinion. This wasn't an opinion. It was wrong in law. Mike Riley missed it. And he always wanted to blame that he'd lost the cup final because of this decision.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I'd argue that they lost the cup final because the other team scored more goals than they did.
Ian Latham
Yeah, yeah.
missed out on
Well,
being
it was-
Football Writer of the Year in 2007. He's never let that one go.
If only I got that close.
Right, one other thing I want to talk about today is, and again, Ian, this was your suggestion that
Don't
Mark,
blame me.
I'm going to blame you for this because again, it was one of those moments in football where you suddenly have a sort of a sense of perspective with time. Because Mark Hughes sort of feels like an evergreen character for me in football. But for those who don't know, he's now managing in the National League. He's managing Carlisle, and a mutual friend of ours went to see him. And he was getting dog's abuse. And it must be hard for Mark Hughes given his managerial career because, I still think of him as a relatively successful manager. I don't know if I'm wrong in that, but Fulham, Man City, QPR, Stoke City, and there he is down at Carlisle.
Bradford.
Yeah,
Bradford as well, yeah.
The backstory is that Hughes went into Carlisle last year to try and keep them up in the Football League. Couldn't do it.
What's the connection there? Why did that happen?
Well,
It's a new owner. So Carlisle went down a different ownership, didn't they?
why did he go there?
Yeah.
He wanted to work. And
Was it just as simple as that?
yeah, he'd worked at Bradford, and he'd worked at Bradford in League Two and come close to getting him up and lost in the playoffs and then got sacked the next season. So I suppose when you've worked in League Two and you've been sacked, you want to work again, you stick you in League Two. So the next job he was offered was Carlisle, bottom of League Two, just on a short-term deal, end of last season. Went up there, gave it a go, briefly got them going, but couldn't do it, went down. And then to everybody's surprise, decided to stay. So they're now in the National League and he's trying to get them back up. And it's incredibly competitive at the top of that league. One goes up automatically and 6 go into the playoffs.
And York are top of the league.
And York are top. And York came to play Carlisle, who were a couple of places beneath them. Top of the table game, big crowd in. York beat them. And Hughes is getting dog's abuse from behind the dugout. And our mutual friend who was there told us about it. And then I saw some stuff on social media with Mark having to go back. And it just made me wonder. I mean, I know Mark a little bit. It just makes you wonder, what, at that moment, you must think to yourself, why?
I played for Barcelona.
Absolutely. I played for Barcelona, Manchester United twice. I've managed Manchester City. I've managed in the Premier League, blah, 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 blah. What am I doing? I'm in my 60s. I'm 100 miles away from home. And this is what I'm getting. At that level, it is so different. I remember when I went to see
I really admire it, by the way. I've got so much respect for Mark Hughes for that.
So do I.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember, a lot of the guys he's managing won't have a clue who he is.
Yeah, but I think Mark, I managed some of his teams. One comes to mind, City, Stoke. What I've always seen him as quite successful. This probably Carlisle was his first one of the, you took Bradford to the playoffs and no hardship the following season that they weren't performing the same because the expectations become higher and the wage bill becomes less. But certainly when he went to Carlisle, I remember Carlisle were going through this period, new owner, young, dynamic owner, wanted to get this club Carlisle back because he knows the catchment area. Yeah. That catchment area around Carlisle is incredible. Incredible. Always incredible crowds. And a good club. I was fortunate when I was a young referee. That was one of my clubs that I could go to because we could only go to certain distances because of expenses. And Carlisle was always a great place to go. And I just think with Mark, and people say, well, why is he doing it? They're in National League and you're getting dogs abuse. You're going to Gateshead, York, Solly, whatever, who was playing in that league. But it'll be the desire to get them back up because to get them back into the Football League, he'll be remembered for. It wasn't his fault they got relegated.
He's doing his level best and he's getting abuse.
But that's the way football is, isn't it?
I think what people probably need to understand also is the level that we're talking about there in terms of finance.
Yeah.
I don't know what Mark's earning at Carlisle. I could probably guess. But I do know that when I went to see him at Bradford, I went to interview him when he was at Bradford. And I said to him, he had a mate who used to work with him, Mark Bowen, a mate of mine. I said, why isn't Bo with you? I can't afford it. I can't afford it. He said, and then he told me the wage of the guy who was acting as assistant was on, and I was gobsmacked.
Can you give us a steer on it? I've got absolutely.
Well, I probably can actually, because I know that one of his staff was on about 35 grand.
Right. Yeah.
Right, for that at Bradford, and he told me that when he arrived, he didn't have an analyst, so the physio agreed to do it. And when you're at Carlisle, particularly, you're talking about some of the places they go to. There won't be overnight stays. Right, they'll be going there on the bus, and they'll be coming back. Now there'll be people listening to this saying, "No, so what?" Well, all I'm saying is
preparation. Yeah.
In contrast to what Mark's used to at Premier League level, with City and even at Stoke and QPR and Fulham, when you're still paid very, very well and get the very best of everything, it's a different world down where he is now. And I think you're right, Mark. It's about desire. I think there is a brand of manager who keep going simply because they're terrified of being at home. I don't think he's in that bracket. Yeah, I know he plays golf. He's a good golfer. I'm sure Mark would be fine. I think his daughter plays hockey for Wales. I think he'd be fine. But I think there's a desire thing. And I've read interviews. I've seen him interviewed at Carlisle. He just says, I just love working with football players. I just
love that. I think
love working with football
players. It's so encouraging and brilliant to hear.
But there's another. I would put another person in that mixer. Chris Coleman, very similar in model. And I mean, why? If you look back at, he went to China.
Is he your favourite Sunderland manager?
Yeah, Sunderland. But that was a difficult period because of the owner.
Yeah.
And we've had conversations with him since, because me being a Newcastle fan, him managing Sunderland didn't really mix quite well. Yeah. But I remember I went to China 2019 as a referee after Saudi Arabia, and he did an incredible job for Hebei. Hebei were just a team outside of Beijing, small place, but always trained in Beijing. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't, they didn't have the crowds. They had some financials, but from one of the rich owners. He did an incredible job to keep them up.
Yep.
Following season, budget got reduced. I remember refereeing his last match. They got beat 2-0. Mm-hmm. Next day I bumped into him. I felt a bit awkward after he's now having to leave China with his family and kids that they've just had to go out of this private school because they'd got beat 2-0. But it wasn't my fault, but it felt awkward. And then I bumped into him again in a Tromatos in Greece. And his desire was, I want to manage. He did extremely well at a Tromatos. Following year, they want more. He gets sacked. He goes to Cyprus. Does well for them,
hard
keeps them up.
Cyprus, isn't it?
100% because of the politics and the in-house fighting and the controls. Yeah. Therefore, he does an okay job, keeps them up. He then goes to Belgium, does an incredible job for the team in Belgium, keeps them up. Following season, he gets the sack, or at the end of the season, they want more. They want to play off. And then he goes back to Asteris, Triplis. And the same thing's happening there. So similar to Mark Hughes.
Though, Mark, would Chris not be getting paid pretty well at most of those places?
No, really, no.
No?
No, not because you're talking the Greek leagues. The smaller Greek teams won't pay that much. Certainly Cyprus wouldn't pay. I think it was an example where Chris has took a project or took a team and he thinks, well, I could change this team's fortune. And he's done what Mark Hughes did at Carlisle, knowing they were probably going to go down, but I want to stay with them because I want to bring them back. And Chris always had that same mentality.
So what's his mentality? Why is he still doing that? Because that's a lot with family traipsing around. That's a lot, isn't it?
But I don't think he's got his family with him now. Right, I think he's with China. It was slightly different because of the gaps. But after that, he didn't have them in Greece, for example. They would travel in and out. But it's the desire of bringing a team from the scrap heap, back to some normality.
I also think with Chris, because he's got that memory of what he did with Wales, 2016, taking them to the semi-finals of the Euros.
Incredible.
I think he's probably still got in his head, I am good at this. I can do something like that again, even though the subsequent 10 years are probably suggesting otherwise.
I keep telling him when I bumped into him again in China, I was like thanking him, and he was like, why are you thanking us? He says, if you'd beaten Portugal that night in the semi-final, Mark Clattenburg wouldn't have refereed the 2016 Euro final. He says you were the only Englishman not wanting Wales to win. I went, I've got to be honest. I wasn't rooting for Wales.
It always comes back to you.
I've never been.
I'd already had the tattoo. I already got the tattoo before the final.
On your arse.
It is pretty. I mean, I find it fascinating when you see those players that you remember from your youth appearing up all around the world. the best example, I think, is the guy, David Robertson. I think he might have played at Leeds as well, David Robertson. He was at Rangers, Aberdeen, brilliant left back, and he ended up at Real Kashmir.
Yeah.
And there's a great documentary about his time there. But he did 5 seasons there.
Yeah.
And it's incredible when you see those names popping up. But, you know, there are a few around the world. Steve McLaren was at Jamaica recently, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Is he still there?
No, he left. He left
isn't
before the playoffs, which I thought was a strange decision. They didn't make it automatic, and then he left before the playoffs. Well, the Phil Brown ones. Who was Phil Brown?
He is Peterborough. It's not.
Oh, that's what I thought. Peter, I'm sure he's not at Peterborough.
No.
Peterborough Sports.
Peterborough Sports.
Where do they play? The Sports Centre. The Peterborough Sports Centre.
Phil's
66, is he? Yeah.
I know, but what a character.
Yeah.
What a
Oh,
character.
great.
I loved it. When he was at Bowling, incredible.
Yeah, I think those guys, he's probably still applying for some fairly big jobs, isn't he?
Can I tell a Phil Brown story?
Of course you
Well,
can.
of course you can. Not the one.
Just remember, Phil
Not
Brown,
the one. Not the one on the
finger, Jimmy Bullard sitting
yeah,
down on the pitch at half time.
Tell this story?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I can. Yeah. So we had a football writers dinner many years ago in London. End of season bash that we have every year when the football of the year gets his award. And this was when it was all a bit old school. And the managers used to come. Not so many do now, but all of them. And Sam and Phil used to come, and they were at Bolton together. Aldice and Phil, and they came down and. I don't know why all my stories involve Neil Custis. We need to get Neil on.
Yeah.
But again, Neil and I kind of got on it a little bit with Sam and Brownie that night. And suffice to say, it ended up in Sam's room at the Royal Lancaster Hotel with me and Neil and Sam essentially like shaking the last bottles out of the minibar onto the carpet while Phil was snoring away on one of the 2 single beds in the room about 5 o'clock in the morning. And legend has it, and I don't know if this is true or not, legend has it that when I was living in London at the time, so Neil, Sam and Phil went to get the train back north that morning, and rumor has it that when they sat down at McDonald's for the breakfast, Brownie asked if they had a wine list.
At McDonald's.
I love that.
Oh, amazing.
Those things don't happen anymore.
that
At
is
football writers
brilliant.
dinners like me. I was at a football writers dinner on Saturday. On Sunday, I was in bed by 11:30.
They're great nights, aren't
the
they?
way it goes now.
Did you ever get invited to any of those
I only
events?
went to the Northeast.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah, the Ramside Hall. I went.
Yeah.
I was supposed to go again, but I was gone to China.
Yeah.
I was supposed to collect an award, all my honours that I'd done. But no, it was always good nights because I don't know if it's the same since, but like for example, it's Newcastle and Sunderland, and always want the player, the coach, Eddie Howe was always going, and you had like one of the players who, like I think Gimmeris won it last year for the Northeast, and they go. So it's great for the other people because they're not all sports writers, they're not all journalists. There's fans as well, so it's like it's a good dinner, and people get the chance to mix with their heroes. So it's a good night.
Hangovers of my life.
Just remember that morning when they left, and I stayed in the room to get some more kip. Sam left his bag. Sam left his Louis Vuitton holdall in the room. And when I
Got
looked,
a copy of Visions.
when I looked in it, there was nothing in it apart from a can of deodorant and a pair of pants. That was all it was.
You looked in it.
All it was in it.
You know,
Was that his overnight bag?
So I took it and I thought, well, I'll just keep this. Sam will probably not want it back. I got a phone call from the press officer at Bolton the next day. Sam wants his bag, by the way. All right. Okay.
You were wearing his pants.
I'm going to have his bag.
He's Lynx after
He was
Lynx
stinking
deodorant.
of Lynx Africa, wearing his pants
wrong with
outside his trousers. Absolutely nothing at all.
Just checking.
Absolutely,
Just checking.
absolutely nothing at all. Some great names though around the world. Dick Advocat, right, is one that I remember very well. He was, a great manager at Rangers.
Sunderland?
Yeah. But he's ended up all around the world. But what a managerial career! 46 years. He's been managing since 1980, the year I was born, which kind of puts it in a bit of
That
perspective.
does, yeah.
But again, that's the other part of this that I wanted to talk about, is that perspective of age, right? Because in my head, Brian Clough was probably in his 60s where he was wearing his green jumper, punching fans on the pitch. But he wasn't, what was he? He'd have been in his
Oh, no, he's in his
30s.
40s.
Was he in his 40s at that point? He took
Yeah.
over at 38, did he not?
Yeah, he joined, I think he joined Derby. Sorry, he caught me on the hop here. Joined Derby when he was about 34, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously did great things at Derby,
Derby,
but then he had his failure at Leeds before he pitched up at Forest. I think he was 40 when he was 40 or 41 when he turned up at Forest. So Nigel, his son, still managing at Mansfield. Nigel's now done more games than his dad. Nigel Clough's done more games than his dad.
Nigel was tough.
Eh?
Nigel was a tough cookie to
Really?
deal with. Oh, very tough.
As a manager.
Oh,
which you'd have seen in what, Sheffield United, Derby,
No,
Burton.
Derby. I remember doing Derby Forest.
Yeah.
And
What a great game to referee with him involved, eh?
It was hard. He's a hard person to please.
Good guy, Nigel.
Yeah.
Is he?
Good guy. They're still in the FA Cup. They beat Sheffield United in the last round. They're away at Burnley in the next round of the Cup. Doing well at Mansfield. Got them top half of League One.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
But more games his dad, Nigel, now. Amazing.
Yeah.
Did you see the film The Damned United, which was based on the brilliant book?
I did, yes.
We've been talking about Roy Keane.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Steve Coogan playing.
Yeah.
That was an amazing cast in that film.
Michael Sheen, isn't it?
Yeah, Michael Sheen and
Yeah.
Stevie Graham played Billy Bremner.
Of course.
So here's a little bit of a showbiz gossip for you, lads. When that film was made, Stevie Graham used to phone me and say, just talk to me in a Scottish accent, or could you give me a wee bit of Glaswegian? And he'd listen, so he could mimic it for the role. And I've played a part in that, but I don't think his accent was that good.
No, that's interesting. And that again, and I know it, and I don't mind saying it because it's common knowledge, because Nigel's on record as saying so, and the Clough family were very upset about that film. And again, there was so much poetic license in Damned United. You know, we know, Brian's struggles with alcohol are documented. But I think there was, I think maybe that, I know that went probably over the line in terms of David Peace's attempts to kind of add a bit of flavour to that as well. It's, it's when you're dealing with people's lives and you're making dramas out of reality, it's a tough one.
And it's also there's got to be some dramas in there to sell the programme, hasn't there, the film? So there's got to be something in there that might be not perfect.
Difficult when people are dead, though.
No, I don't like it. Honestly, I don't like it. That's why I don't really watch them, because it's not. I don't think it's a true reflection, and it's only shown what the need can show. And I'm thinking, really, do they need to do it?
I can't remember whose book it was. You maybe remember, but there's a great story about Brian Clough and Roy Keane, where the head of the youth team, or whoever it was that signed Roy Keane, had phoned Brian Clough and said, "We're a bit worried about this Irish lad. He's painted his room black." Apparently, like the entire room, he painted it black.
If you watch Saipan, you'll get a little bit of the understanding as to how that might have come about, by the way.
I'm so sorry, I can't remember whose book it was in. An image of this young lad from Cork who's arrived. We're a bit worried about him.
What a player when he was that age. What a player.
He was incredible, wasn't he? Great to see.
Now, before we hear some more of Mark and Ian's thoughts, we're in partnership with Wix Trade Pro, and for any tradespeople out there, this one is for you.
That's right, because Wix Trade Pro is here to save you time and money.
Save 10% every time you shop in-store or online. There's no minimum spend, no hassle, just savings.
Amazing. And what's more, Wix Trade Pro want you to start the new year off right.
That's why they've introduced Smart Water, the award-winning forensic marking technology that's proven to deter tool thieves and make your gear traceable and recoverable. And all it takes is 3 simple steps.
That's right. First, mark your tools with the applicator and solution provided. Then place the deterrent signage on windows and doors before registering your marked tools so they can be identified. If only VAR made things that easy.
You're telling me.
To sign up and start saving, just download the Wix Trade Pro app today.
Right, one other thing to talk about this week is how tight the Premier League is for European places.
Shite.
It is tight. It is very, very tight. And I was trying to decipher and work out whether that's a reflection of good competition or poor quality. Mark Clattenburg, I think there's something ridiculous like, got to get this right, every team in the Premier League from 11th upwards is within 5 points of Champions League football. I just think that's incredible. So Sunderland, Everton, Brentford, Newcastle and Fulham, all realistic, I think, of a chance of getting in the Champions League. Is that, in your opinion, Mark, a reflection of poor football or a good sign of competition?
Depends who you are. I think the Premier League will be rubbing their hands.
Really?
Because as a competition, and that's what it is,
it
gives this competition practically till the end of the season, because we've seen in previous years where the Championship has been solved, the Champions League spots have been solved, the European places within 1 or 2 teams that are fighting it out, and the bottom's been solved. And I think this year, if we look at it from a competition point of view, I think that this could be the best competition of the Premier League when it's probably in January, we're now in nearly February, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to win the title. We don't know who's going to play in the Champions League. We don't know who's going to play in Europe. And still, give or take one team We don't know who's going to get
Do
relegated.
you know, I was looking at David Moyes as an example, right? I think the 9 wins this season. There's just something confident about Moyes. Listen, there's potential Europa League stuff to talk about here as well.
Yeah.
So what's your take of it, Ian, then? Do you think it's a sign of the quality's dropping, or is it more competitive than ever?
I think it's a sign that the top teams that we have been used to being at the top, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, etc., are finding it just that bit harder to win. I think that's what it is. I think there were 2 outstanding performances in the Premier League this season. They are Aston Villa and Sunderland.
Yeah.
So far. Okay. And I think the problem is that the big team, or not the problem, but the issue is that the big teams are finding it harder to win. And that, I think that is because somebody on Thomas Tuchel's coaching staff explained to a group of us recently, is that their take on it is that coaching is now getting so good that that coaches are now finding a way to coach against the big teams, and that is to stop big teams playing through them.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into the use the kind of trendy terminology of low blocks, etc., and all that, but it's that issue of making that middle third of the field very difficult. So Liverpool are finding it Liverpool play well against teams that want to play against them. Real Madrid, for example, who they played very well against. When teams come not to play, they're really struggling. City are even finding it the same. And that is why teams are now starting to go over the top. That's why we're seeing long ball football. That's why we're seeing set piece football. Somebody at the FA said to me that is why, and it goes into international football. A team like Andorra, right, statistically one of the worst teams in the world football, no longer get beat 7-8-0. They get beat, but they get beat 2-0 and 3-0 because they can do it as well. So teams are finding it less onerous to stop the really adventurous technical teams playing through them. And I think that is why you're finding this drop-off between, Arsenal and that drop-off around, places 4 and 5 in the Premier League.
You made a good point at the start of the season in your interview with the Sunderland coach.
Yeah, with Dilbury, yeah.
And what did he say? He'll find a way to win.
Yeah, and he
wasn't going to play like Russell Martin at Southampton and get lose it at the back and give the ball away in the top end and next strike's a goal. Sunderland have been really difficult. Okay, you can say about West Ham and maybe Brentford is a slight difference. Maybe now they're getting the players back from their AFCON, but Sunderland are a very difficult team.
But I don't necessarily think it's good for. Just looking at the stats, I don't think it's particularly good for the Premier League for a team like Everton. Everton fans will come at me for this, but 9 league wins out of 23.
40-odd% win rate.
Yeah, but from a shout of the Champions League, is that right?
Yeah, but you're seeing it from an outside, aren't you? You're seeing, but if you think
it's not just
Premier
Everton,
League, Premier League, the clubs know because there's not many leagues in Europe competitive. Honestly, you look at the Italian league, you look at the Spanish league, you look at the French leagues, the top European leagues and around aren't as competitive as the Premier League. You can see games, and I could see it. Paris Saint-Germain are playing against one of the sides near the bottom of the French league, like Nantes or I'm just saying for theoretical. You know the result. You know what's going to happen. You don't in the Premier League. And I quite like that idea that Everton can win 9 games. Why not?
Because
Sunderland are unbeaten at home. Who would have thought at the start of the season?
It's unfair of me to single out Everton because Brentford, Fulham, Newcastle, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United have all won 10.
Yeah.
So none of them are knocking it out of the park. All I would say is it doesn't sit right with me for a team, any of those teams, to be. Champions League football is supposed to be about elite competition. Yeah. And you're within a shout of getting in it when you've won 9, 10 out of 23 league games.
It's not champions, is it?
Yeah,
that's not
champions
right to me.
But at the end, I think at the end, after 38 games, Ian, I think most teams that will have deserved their chance to be in that. Do you think Sunderland are going to hold that position? Do you think Brentford are going to hold that position? Like if you look at even Sunderland, for an example, and I was shocked when I looked at the table. Everybody says to me, Sunderland are having a fantastic season. They are. Because everybody expected them to go down.
Yeah.
But they're still below Newcastle. And that's you think, well, hold on, Sunderland have beaten Newcastle and they've had a better season than Newcastle, but Newcastle are above. It's the bigger sides.
But what Sunderland have done is incredible.
Because everybody expected them to go down.
I watched the playoff game against Sheffield United. They were outplayed. And they got up. And they rebuilt the squad from scratch, and look what they've done. It's incredible.
Incredible players they brought in.
Incredible what they've done.
You know, is it
recruitment, Mark?
Gosh, Saka. Nah, man, Mia, what a player. And you saw him against West when they missed him.
That could have gone either way,
Ham.
by the way, the Xhaka transfer. That could have gone either way. That could have either turned out the way it has or been a complete disaster. That was a gamble. But you talk about a gambling. What I listen to people in the club, and people are saying they didn't just bring him in as a football player. They brought him in as a leader.
Yeah.
They brought him in for the dressing room because they knew they had a young squad and they needed a father in that dressing room. And they never had it for a long time, Sunderland. And yeah, you can argue it's worked out well because his standard of players being superb, but he's a leader. You watch him before the game, you know, the handshakes, the way he waits for all of his players. He's a complete leader.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what some clubs lack.
I loved him giving it back to the guys.
Yeah, to give it back to West Ham.
I was talking to someone at another club at the weekend who said they've sat on that back row of that away dugout at West Ham, and they said it's absolutely gruesome.
Andy Dillon sitting near there, does he?
Absolutely.
It's not a bad place to sit, is it?
But is it all right for them to say that? This is what I dislike. You know, everybody's blaming, you know, I saw the footage and blaming Saka because he shouldn't do it. After the abuse that you take, and the fans can dish it out, but they can't get it back.
Yeah, give it back.
Yeah, you've got to try and stay the right side of the line.
I know,
it's part of the job.
But then,
but
I had a go once, and it was Stoke, and the abuse I was taking, it was ridiculous going off Stoke as I was going off, and I'm thinking this is not correct.
Really?
And I went to the steward.
Corner tunnel.
Yeah, and I went to the steward, are you going to stop that? And there was foul language, it was horrible, and there was kids around, and I went, are you going to stop that? What was the reaction? No.
Nothing.
Really?
Nothing.
Right, yeah.
And you're thinking, well, hold on, if I did something, I would be in front of the FA.
What was he calling you?
Zero. I can't remember now, but I actually said I was having a good game, which was wrong.
But aren't those corner tunnels? I always think the corner tunnels. Burnley, Stoke, United. If you've had a bad day,
Selhurst Park. Selhurst Park as well.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want. Because the normal tunnels you can get off pretty sharpish, can't you?
Yeah.
That's a long walk. It's a corner
walk,
tunnel.
That would be the worst grounds on last day of the season. Because you know, tradition years ago, last days of the season they used to run on. Playoff games were worse. Second leg playoffs, semi-finals. I remember Hull City playoff game, and they were playing Watford, and one of my assistants was shouting down his earpiece because he was getting a bit old, so he was like worrying about running across the pitch. Yeah. And there was 4 or 5 minutes left. Hull were winning 4-1. Yeah. The crowd kept coming on the pitch every 2 minutes. Every time I blew the whistle, they thought it was the full-time whistle. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I need to get off here.
Yeah.
I need to work. And my assistant's screaming, Mark, please help. Yeah. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do for you for the last 2 minutes. Come over to the dugout side. I'll have 2 assistants on the same side. Yeah, for the last 2 minutes. You still give offside. It just means I'm worrying about the ball out of play. Just for his safety. Within 2 minutes, I finishes the game right on the halfway. Like, I'm down the tunnel.
You ended the game with 2 lines on the same side of the pitch.
Yeah. It was the only way we could get them off.
You really were just a lawn to yourself by the end of your career, weren't you?
What difference would it make?
You could do what the hell you like.
I
was looking after my colleague, by the way, because my colleague was getting older.
You weren't going to an Ed Sheeran concert. You weren't going to an Ed Sheeran concert again, were you?
Look at his Porsche at the car park.
I did have a half a Viagra in us.
You're Ed Sheeran. He's a fucking take that.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Right, boys, thank you very much. Pleasure to see you, as always.
Why do I come on this podcast and always tell about 8 stories that I really shouldn't tell?
I like it. And then you spend the rest of the week worrying about them.
Exactly.
Yeah, tell me, but I'm still in the bad books.
Oh, you are, aren't you?
I'm in the bad books. Yeah. Whistleblowers@dailymail.com. That is the important email address. Get in touch, ask some questions. Mark's expertise, Ian's expertise, and my terrible stories from the past. Whistleblowers@dailymail.com. You know where we are on all the social channels. Just look up Whistleblowers and you'll find your way. Right, Mark, have you got your whistle?
No.
Thank you very much for watching Whistleblowers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, episodes every Thursday and Tuesday. And on a Sunday, you'll get our clip of the week.